going to, I was about to open us up in prayer, but we're going to have somebody do that for us in just a sec. Our church has been going through the Psalms for this Lenten season so far. So Lent is the 40 days that leads up to Easter. We remember the 40 days that Jesus spent in the wilderness. We remember the 40 years that the Israelites spent in the wilderness. And so it's the 40 days leading up to Easter, and we've been going through one psalm a week. And so our church has been reading a psalm every day, if you can, for the week. And then on the Sunday, that person preaches about whatever psalm that we've all been reading together. This week, that's been Psalm 22. And one thing that some of us in the teaching team are going to try to do is try to have somebody from the church who's not the teacher read that psalm. And if you don't know, Psalms, they're the prayer book of the Bible. As Eugene Peterson, he's an author, he wrote the Message translation of the Bible. He calls it the gymnasium. It's where we learn to practice to pray. And so if you are a person, you've ever been a person who doesn't feel that prayer is like the easiest thing in the world for you, then the Psalms are a great, albeit sort of confusing at first, but a great place to start. And so this week it's been Psalm 22. And so I actually got in touch with Cynthia this week, and she was able to record a video of her reading Psalm 22 and then sharing a little bit of what that meant to her. I was reading through Psalm 22, and there's a line in there, if you've read it this week, it's "My heart has melted away like wax." And so Cynthia's a long-time member of our church. Cynthia and her son Chris, Chris would often come up to me and just be like, "I remember when Cora Fox was as small as Piper is, and when Eiley was as small as Cora is." So like years ago, they've been a part of this church for longer than even us, like way longer. And Cynthia's had just a horrible time health-wise. The last year really, but especially the last 6 months. A lot of time in and out of the hospital, mostly in the hospital, and just recently had open heart surgery, made it through that, thank God, and was in the recovery process and is still very much in the recovery process. And so she was able to come home quickly, but then had to go back to Chicago because of another complication. So open heart surgery, like her chest was split open, you know what I mean? Like it's a recovery. We were just saying this morning, Craig was saying it's not linear. It's not just going to go up and get better the whole time. So she's still in Chicago, and she hasn't been with us as a community since August, so a little over 6 months at this point. But yeah, she was feeling well enough to do this. So we'll listen to a video of her reading Psalm 22. If you want to have it open, there's black cover Bibles in the seats around you, or your phone, or your own Bible. She'll be reading from the NIV version this morning, as will I. And yeah, so she'll read that, and then she'll tell us a little bit about what it's meant to her. So let's listen to Cynthia.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here to read Psalm 22 to you and reflect a little bit. I love you guys. I miss you all. I am so grateful to be part of our church family. It's a wonderful place to be. Psalms 22, verse 1. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me, so far from my cries of anguish? My God, I cry out by day, but you do not answer. By night, but I find no rest. Yet you are enthroned as the Holy One. You are the one Israel praises. In our ancestors our ancestors put their trust. They trusted you, and you delivered them. To you they cried out and were saved. In you they trusted and were not put to shame. But I am a worm and not a man, scorned by everyone, despised by the people. All who see me mock me. They hurl insults, shaking their heads. He trusts in the Lord, they say. Let the Lord rescue him. Let him deliver him, since he delights in him. Yet you brought me out of the womb. You made me trust in you, even at my mother's breast. From birth I was cast on you. From my mother's womb you have been my God. Do not be far from me, for the trouble is near, and there is no one to help. Many bulls surround me, strong bulls of Bashan encircle me. Roaring lions that tear their prey open with their mouths open wide against me. I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart has turned to wax. It has melted within me. My mouth is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue sticks to the roof of my mouth. You lay me in the dust of death. Dogs surround me. A pack of villains encircle me. They pierce my hands and my feet. All my bones are on display. People stare and gloat over me. They divide my clothes amongst them and cast lots for my garment. But you, Lord, do not be far away from me. You are my strength. Come quickly to help me. Deliver me from the sword, my precious life from the power of the dogs. Rescue me from the mouths of the lions. Save me from the horns of the wild oxen. I will declare your name to my people. In the assembly, I will promise you. You who fear the Lord, praise him. All you descendants of Jacob, honor him. Revere him, all you descendants of Israel. For he has not despised nor scorned the suffering of the afflicted one. He has not hidden his face from him, but has listened to his cries for help. From you comes the theme of my praise. In the great assembly before those who fear you, I will fulfill my vows. The poor will eat and be satisfied. Those who seek the Lord will praise him. May your hearts live forever. All the ends of the earth will remember and turn to the Lord. All the families of the nations will kneel down before him. For dominion belongs to the Lord, and he rules over the nations. All the rich of the earth will feast and worship. All who go down to the dust will kneel before him. Those who cannot keep themselves alive. Posterity will serve him. Future generations will be told about the Lord. They will proclaim his righteousness, declaring to the people, yet unborn, he has done it. This psalm is very important because it echoes so many of the things that have happened this past year. So many times I've cried out in pain and asked the Lord to save me, and he has. I have, according to my sister, cheated death at least 4 times. I know one time I was coding in the hospital. I knew I wasn't going to make it. And I was afraid when I was taking my last breath. And I asked the Lord to please don't take me. I said, Jesus, you know I love you, but please don't take me until I know that my grandchildren know who you are. And I came through that. That was very early on. That was back in like August. And I did, they brought me back, and I found out a couple days later that my grandchildren had got to know who Jesus is through their iPads. And so I was very grateful and thankful for that. And I just want to, that's one of the things I can share. Other things is I've met so many people in the hospital that nurses, doctors, that see things that have happened to me as miracles. and have been able to spread my testimony about many different things with many people. And I believe that's why God has me here. Now, but this Psalms is true. It's like for years people mocked me because I was a Christian or whatever. But I just kept putting my eyes, my heart towards Jesus. And then I knew that, he loves me and he takes care of me. I have had so many bad things happen to me, but then wonderful things have come as a result. And I did feel like I was losing hope and faith at one point. And I called my sister, who is not necessarily a believer. And she had not seen this side of me. And she was very worried. But then she said, but she met Craig and Liz, and at the hospital, and some other people, Heather and Moses, and came to understand what a church community is supposed to be. How when you go, it's not about the building, it's not about sitting in the pews, it's about loving each other. And she very obviously saw the love that you guys hold for us, just as the love we hold for you. It's incredible to be with so many followers of Christ who actually believe his words and his beautiful way of living. Anyways, hope to see y'all soon. Hopefully I'm coming back to Rockford for my rehab, and would love visitors. I love you guys. Chris is still in South Carolina. He's going to stay there until I go home, to my home. And my sister will fly him back here. I know he misses you guys. He tells me every Sunday. But we love you, and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Really, really great to hear from her, of course, especially in light of everything that she's been through this year. And we'll keep you updated. Like as a church, we'll try to keep you guys in the loop of what's going on with her, and especially when she gets back to Rockford, because I've never been through something like that, but I would not want to go through something like that on my own, especially when you can't leave the building that you're maybe even the room that you're staying in. So we'll let you guys know, and we'll see how we can show up together and love her. Yeah. Okay. So let's take that and say yes and then try to peel apart the layers of this psalm a bit, because as you heard, there's a lot going on. Maybe if this is only your first or second time reading it this week, you're maybe like, wow, it's still going on. Like, wow, still talking about stuff. This is great. Is this the same psalm? Like that's the effect that I have a lot of times reading this. I first want to ask, how often when you pray, do you start your prayer by saying, my God, why have you forsaken me? Is that a very normal prayer for you? But if some of you prayed that way before, raise your hand if you've suffered. Yeah. Me too. Yeah. Suffering is a universal experience. I truly believe, I don't think that there's a human being who is exempt from suffering. It is as universal as your need for food, water, and shelter. Suffering is something to varying degrees that all human beings will go through. And that's what makes the Psalms in general, but especially this Psalm, so relatable and so easy to read. Maybe not at this moment, but I hope you could think back to a time in your life like, man, My heart had melted away like wax. My bones were on display for all to see. Bulls and dogs and lions were encircling me. There was no way out. I know a lot of you, if not every single one of you, have been in a place like that before. And that's what makes this so readable. One really important thing while we're on Psalm 22 that kept coming to mind again and again and again, it's from this first line, this idea of God-forsakenness. Whenever I hear the word now, God-forsaken, it's usually like, I don't know, some desolate place in the desert, like this God-forsaken wasteland, like God clearly isn't here because it's not taken care of, that kind of thing. From a theological perspective, there is a whole line of thinking that at the moment that Jesus is on the cross, because that's the other reason that we chose this psalm this week, was because these are some of Jesus' last words on the cross, is Psalm 22. At least the first line, if not the entire thing. Jesus is on the cross. He said, my God, why have you forsaken me? That line became so popular, especially in the Western Hemisphere, which is where we're at in the church. It became so popular and it created this line of thinking that when Jesus was on the cross at that moment, that he was taking on all of our sin and he had become so dark and so depraved and so sinful because he was taking it on, not because he had done anything wrong, but because he was taking on everything that we have done wrong, that God could not look at him. Not only could he not look at him, that he had to turn away from him. Not only that he had to turn away from him, but he actually almost is as if he had to neglect his existence for a bit. The idea that God can't be close to sin, it could be nothing, there could be nothing further from the truth as far as I can tell. That God can't be close to sin. I'm not trying to say that God is sinful, or like that God is like messing up all of the time, or like wherever you see like the worst thing happening, it's like, oh, God is clearly doing that. But the idea that God cannot be around or look upon sin is so antithetical. It's so the opposite of what the story of the Bible is about. I just had to say something about this. And that's actually what a lot of this is about. Because the whole story of the Bible, Old Testament especially, but when you get to the life of Jesus, is about how God continues to confront sin again and again and again. He continues to use the people of Israel, who at a lot of the time are like the worst people around. Like they're doing horrible, awful things to themselves and to everybody else. And he continues to choose them and to use them and to open up their hearts and say, I'm going to write a new covenant on your hearts. He uses them again and again. The most broken people are the most like famous people that you've heard Bible stories from. But especially when you get to Jesus. If we believe that Jesus is God, then we can't believe that God can be far away from sin. Sin is the thing that is making the world broken. Not just this, like the stuff that we're doing, like sure we absolutely mess up, but like a lot of the sin that exists in the world, perhaps most of the sin that exists in the world, it's happened to us. It's a byproduct of all the entropy going around, of all the brokenness throughout time. And Jesus doesn't just confront it, he goes into the face of it, he joins hands with it. How is Jesus to heal people? How is he to reconcile and redeem people back to their community? How is he to, this is the example I couldn't get out of my head, how is he to walk through a crowd and a woman who has been excommunicated from her community for 12 years because she's had a medical condition that she can't do anything about. For 12 years she's been bleeding, and that woman comes and touches his cloak. A woman that is coated in sin, as the community would see it, would come and touch Jesus' cloak, and power would leave Jesus and go towards the sin. How can, like, and what does Jesus do? He said, somebody touched me. The disciples like, yeah, you're in a crowd of people. You're the Messiah. Obviously people touch you. He said, no. Somebody touched me. And I need to stop what I'm doing right now, and I need to turn and I need to face her. And I need to tell her, I can look at you, and I can see your brokenness, and I can name it, and I can tell you that it's not your fault, and I can tell you, come and be a part of the kingdom of God once again. Come and be a part of this community once again. God does not look away from sin. God looks right at it. Because the God that Christians serve and worship and need is a God of suffering. So I needed to spend a bit of time talking about that. If you come across this theology, I'm not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm not saying if you love this theologian or that scholar or this author and they say that, I'm not saying everything that they say is wrong. That's not what I'm trying to say. But But God does not look away from sin. God does not turn his face away from Jesus, and he doesn't turn his face away from you when you do something wrong or when something is done wrong to you. God is a God of suffering. Jesus is a God who joins in our suffering, so much so that he would pray one of the most relatable, lamentable psalms that there is, that he would pray Psalm 22 with us. We don't need to pick individual verses and lines of scripture. That's not what the authors were after. They were after telling us the whole story. And in the story, we see time and time again God letting sin exhaust all of its power, its only real weapon, death, upon himself. And that's how he could defeat it. He wins by sacrifice. He defeats it by serving us. That's the God that we worship. As paradoxical and backwards as that is, that's the God that we serve. That's the God that we worship. So that's what the psalm is not. It's not a proof text for God forsaking us, or God forsaking Jesus especially. What this psalm is a lament. Would you guys say that the Christian church, right now at least, at the church that you know, perhaps in the United States, is terribly good at lament? Do you think we're well practiced in that? Do bad things happen to the American church or the people in it? All the time. It's not like bad things aren't happening. It's not like we're not suffering. We just, for so many reasons, it's just not something we're well versed in. And again, that's nobody's fault. I'm not here to condemn you for that. I'm not also saying I'm definitely not like an expert in it at all. But what this psalm is, it's become for Christians, it's become a prayer mantra for all those who are suffering. Again, any kind of suffering experience that you go through, you can come to the psalm and I bet you can relate to it, at least parts of it. You can absolutely relate to it. Why it's become such a prayer mantra that it is, because again, God suffers with us. We see Jesus obviously suffering on the cross. To go back earlier, we see Jesus emotionally, not physically suffering, but emotionally suffering in the Garden of Gethsemane just before. The night before, he said, I don't want to do this. Is there any other way? I'd rather not do this. Can you take this cup from me? That's like the emotional turmoil of knowing what's about to come. I know you've been there, right? Like the bad thing that you're about to find out, or the bad thing that's about to happen to you, or just the anxiety of something that could happen even. Like Jesus in the garden is emotionally suffering there. Before, he's emotionally suffering because he's grieving at his friend Lazarus dying, who he's about to raise from the dead, but that's the classic easy verse memorization, 2 words, Jesus wept. Jesus weeps at his friend being dead. He weeps at this tiny victory that death has, but he won't let that have the final word. To go back even earlier, Jesus suffers in the 40 days of the temptation. He chooses he chooses to fast. He chooses not to eat for 40 days. I get hungry between meals. You know what I mean? Like for 40 days, Jesus is suffering again and again and again. Every time he wakes up, every time that he blinks, every time that he breathes and feels that his mouth is dried like a potsherd, he's suffering. To go back even earlier into the Old Testament, Jacob, who's like, there's worship songs, right? Oh God of Jacob, like we sing that, who's a trickster, different sermon, but Jacob is suffering because he's lied and he's cheated and he's stolen and he's worried that his family is going to disown him and that his older brother is going to kill him. And what God does is he meets him and he wrestles with him. That's where Israel got its name. Israel means wrestles with God and have overcome. Not have overcome God, but have overcome the brokenness, have overcome the suffering, and have joined with God. The distance with God is what they've overcome. And to go even earlier to show that like God himself suffers. In the Noah story, this is something that's often skipped over in the children's books because it's not as cool as animals and rainbows. God grieves at the world that he has created. In Genesis chapter 6, God looks at the world that he has created and he is grieved because he sees the amount of wickedness and suffering that has overcome that once completely good world that he had created, that once completely shalom, not lacking anything, world that he had created. He grieves at the brokenness that has fallen upon this world. God is a God who suffers. That's the God that we worship. And the biggest, if I were to offer a proof text for this in Psalm 22, what we just heard Cynthia read, rather than the Father turning his face away, in this psalm, in Psalm 22, God actually says, or the psalmist actually says, that God has not, this is verse 24, Psalm 22, verse 24, if you still have it in front of you. God has not despised or disdained the suffering of the afflicted one. He has not hidden his face from him, but has listened to his cry for help. God has not hidden his face from him, but has listened to his cry for help. This is the picture of lament that we get. It's a picture of the thoughts and the feelings of the afflicted one, of the afflicted Jesus that we gather together to worship and serve. And it's a journey through it. Because it's not sad the whole time. Is not grieving the whole time. He's not saying my life sucks the whole time. There's actually equal airtime given to both my life is awful, I feel like garbage, and but God, you're still in charge. But God, you're still doing things. But God, I remember these things that you've done before. It's pretty much like even the amount of words and verses that are given to each side. But which do you think that the psalmist is feeling? Which do you think that Jesus is feeling? Is Jesus feeling, yeah, or like the psalm, like, is the psalmist really feeling like, yeah, God is like really good and really in charge. I feel great right now. Or when you read the psalm, especially the first line, do you think he's feeling more, my life sucks, wholeheartedly? At least my reading is the first words, right? My God, why have you forsaken me? It's not a proof text to say like, well, the Bible says that God forsook Jesus and the psalmist and David and whatever. It's not a proof text for that in so much as it's saying, this is the experience that I'm having right now. It's the great paradox of lament prayer. We pray to a God who feels like he's not there. We're praying, we're trying to engage in relationship with somebody that feels at least far, if not nowhere, like it's what it feels like. But as far as Scripture can show, it's not saying that's the reality, but it's naming that experience. It's pushing you away from denial. I can't remember exactly what it was. You might remember, Kyle, because you said it last week. There was a quote by Dan Allender, I believe, something about what the Psalms, they provoke us to confront our denial or something. Do you remember what that quote was? There was no way that was it. Well, what is it? Do you remember what it is? Something like that. The Psalms can help us name our emotions when we're going them. You can flip through and you can find something like, oh yeah, this is exactly what I'm feeling right now. But can also draw you out of whatever emotion that you're feeling. Maybe you had a good week and you're reading Psalm 22 and like, what's this guy going on about? Like that very well just could have been not how you're feeling. But it draws you out of your own experience, your own echo chamber, your own emotions. And it draws you into naming the reality that you or that other people might go through. You have to face whatever denial you're saying, like, I feel like God's kind of far away, but no, God's good, like he's totally near me all the time. It forces you out, it forces you to be honest, it forces you to be yourself. So in our reading of the psalm, I hope that we can see this psalm and the continual, we're going to have at least one, maybe two, depends who you talk to, psalms of lament for the rest of this Lenten season. I hope that we can read this psalm as a blueprint for our lament. And again, maybe life's good right now. Maybe you don't have a lot to complain about or worry about. Maybe you don't really feel like you're suffering. There will come a day. There will come a day again that you're going to be feeling this way, that your heart is going to melt away like wax, and you're going to feel surrounded. And the blueprint that it offers us is for us to be wholeheartedly honest and to absolutely and totally name exactly what we're going through because you can. Because God, being a God who suffers, God doesn't flinch when you suffer and when you bring that to him. To take that a step further, God doesn't flinch when you're disappointed with him. God doesn't flinch when you're mad at him. The reason I picked this psalm was because I had an intense season of doubt. I was like maybe, or like at least borderline, if not totally atheistic for a while in college. I just totally, my faith was absolutely in tatters. And I have this moment where I often look back to where I went out to this boat ramp, Southern Illinois, so you can just do stuff like that if you want to. I went out to this boat ramp that was all made of gravel, and I went out there, and it was like, I don't know, it was like 11 at night, so it's totally dark. It's out on a lake, like in the middle of nowhere. Nobody's out there, and I was just shouting at God. I was just like, I felt a bit silly while I was doing it. I was like literally shaking my fists at God, but that just didn't feel right, and so I was reaching down, and I was grabbing these rocks that represented parts of my life that I felt like I had lost. I was throwing them as hard as I could into the air at the water, but I was like, I wanted to hit God, like with the rocks. I was like, This is awful. I've lived my whole, like I've wanted to like go into ministry. I wanted to be a pastor. I've given so much of my life to the church, and now I'm here, and I know I'm far from home. I know things are different, but like, why wouldn't you show me something? Why wouldn't you split the heavens in half right now so you could come down and just, wouldn't that be better if you just showed me and finally said to me, like, Aiden, I'm here. Like, it's okay. It's all going to be fine. And he didn't. And so I was trying to hit him with a rock. I was ticked. Like, I was absolutely livid at this point. I spent so long out there. I don't even know how many rocks I threw. Like, I couldn't get enough of it out. And I didn't drive away and have this heavens opening experience. I didn't wake up the next morning and have somebody who just like walked down my hallway, even though it was a Christian school. Like I didn't have somebody walk down the hall and be like, hey, I was praying this morning and God told me that you're struggling, but I want you to know that he sees you. That didn't happen to me. It would have been great if it did. and I've had times in my life where that kind of thing has happened. I know that a number of you guys have as well, where like God speaks to you or God speaks to you through another person. Like absolutely, those things happen. It's just at this particular moment, in this particular story, it didn't. I went on a long recovery, like I was spiritually damaged and broken, and I went on a long, and I'm still on a long spiritual healing process. And I confidently attest today that God has been with me every step of the way. One super unique, the reason that I say that, I'm not just saying that for platitudes, guys. Like, I'm not just saying that to you're like, oh, well, at least Aiden didn't like chuck me into spiritual doubt or anything. Like, I'm not just saying that to try to make you feel better. Genuinely, as I look back at my life, as much as it seems like those prayers go unanswered, as the psalmist says, he heard my cry for help. Having a 17-month-old daughter right now has been such a helpful image of this because she's a toddler and she gets mad now. And she screams and sometimes she hits. And she could hit me as hard as she can, 100 times, anywhere in my body, almost. Um, yeah. Almost anywhere in my body, 100 times, and I would be totally fine. I'd absolutely be able to shake it off. And I still won't give her the scissors. You know what I mean? But I'm not going to leave her either. I'll listen to everything that she's saying. And I'll continue to say, I love you. And I'll continue to say, I'm here for you. And I'll continue to show up for her in other ways, but I may not do that exact thing that she's asking me to do. And that experience of doubt that I had, that experience of that long recovery of making my way back to Jesus, making my way back into the Christian faith, was more formative than anything that came before. More for me at least. I'm not saying it has to be for you. For me at least, it was more formative. That long recovery process that I'm still going through was more formative than any of just the moments that God showed up. Because I mean, those moments are great. Like birthday parties are great. Christmas gifts, they're great, but the moments are fleeting, and the moments aren't sustainable. The moments alone, they just create a shallow and insecure faith. The longevity, the consistent showing up, the chesed, the biblical steadfastness of God that continues to come again and again and again back to the covenant, even whenever we break it. That's the stuff of daily faith. That's the stuff of daily living. That's what Eugene Peterson, the guy that I brought up earlier, he has a book called A Long Obedience in the Same Direction. The subtext is Discipleship in an Instant Society. That book was written 46 years ago in 1980. Discipleship in an Instant Society. Still pretty relevant today. A long obedience in the same direction. Waking up every day and saying yes to the invitation of following Jesus. That's what it looks like. And it includes suffering. Here's another fact of the matter. We may not live to see the end of our suffering. You may be going through something right now, a physical ailment, a broken relationship. You had a job, you lived in a place that was perfect, and you don't have that anymore. You keep asking God for a yes, he keeps saying no. A lot of us will begin to see that leaf turn over. A lot of us will wake up one day and whatever was a problem will be fixed. There will be things in this life that all of us go through, that a pain will just kind of sit with us. And it'll get better and it'll heal, but it'll remain a scar. It won't totally go away. So what do you do? Like, what do you do when you worship a good God? And it's great that he suffers with me. Thank you, God, for suffering with me, but what do I do when I still feel bad all the time? That's what the blueprint offers. And especially that verse right there that I mentioned, verse 24. That's the last crux. So in the psalm, he goes from life sucks to you're good though, life sucks, you're good. One more time. Life sucks, you're good. At the end. It's longer and longer each time. At Psalm 24, that's right at the end of that last hinge point. That God has not despised or disdained the suffering of the afflicted one. You're the afflicted one, but when Jesus takes this on his lips for me, it's an opportunity to point to Jesus. I'm not a big, the theological term is penal substitutionary atonement. What that means is we were so messed up and God was so mad at us that somebody had to be the ransom. And so Jesus had to take that all on. And now God's not mad anymore. I'm not a big proponent of that. Atonement theory is what that's called. I'm not a big proponent of that's exactly what happened on the cross. I'm not here to tell you that none of that is true. I'm not God. I was not there on the cross. I was not there for the event. I'm not, again, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I don't look at the biblical story, and though God gets mad, for sure, he does, and probably still does to this day, that alone does not suffice for the event of what happens at the cross. An addition that I think should be made to it, the one that we've already talked about, is that God is a God who suffers with us. Another addition that is made for it is that not just the stuff that you did, but all the things that are broken in the world that we have no control over. All the things that have happened to you or have happened to your loved ones, the things that you've had to watch again and again, and you've had to cry out, and you've had to lament, and you've had to say, God, why haven't you fixed this? Why hasn't this gotten better? Why hasn't this been solved yet? You're going to make me keep waking up and face this reality. Or make this person keep waking up and face this reality. Why, God? Why have you left them? Why have you forsaken them? Why have you forsaken me? Again and again, we're allowed to do this because God won't flinch. And again, as we follow this spiritual blueprint of lament, we can come to God and remember the afflicted one. We can remember Jesus. That afflicted one was redeemed. That afflicted one was saved. Again, you might not live to see the end of your day of suffering. A lot of you probably know people who died before they were able to see the end of their day of suffering. That's something to lament over. That's something to cry out to God over. And he can take it and he encourages it because he wants that whole relationship. That's something worth throwing rocks for, right? It is lamentable. It does break our hearts. And also, even when we don't feel like it, even when we don't feel like it, that's what the Psalms teach us, we can reach out and we can say, and, not but, we can say, and God, you have heard this cry. We can say, and God, you have looked upon the suffering of that afflicted one. You have looked upon the suffering of Jesus, and you have redeemed him. Now let's dive in there super quick. Did Jesus die? Jesus got to die. Like when I say he was redeemed from suffering, it doesn't mean he doesn't have to go on the cross. It doesn't mean that he had to take on all the brokenness of the world and all the bad things that have ever happened and that humans have ever done. Jesus did get to die. And for all of us, in some way or another, that's our fate too. A quote from Richard Burridge, he's an author of a book called Four Gospels, One Jesus. Yes, Jesus is the Son of God, powerful and mighty in his cosmic struggle, and that is not to be forgotten. But there was no last-minute miraculous escape for him, and those who follow should expect no less. It's a hard pill to swallow. For me, that's a hard pill to swallow. I would love to see the end of all the things that are going wrong in my life. And the things that I know will go wrong in the future, I would love to see them end and be redeemed. I would love that. That's a part of the Christian tenet of we believe in the second coming, and we believe that there will be a new heaven and a new earth, and they will be a new kingdom altogether. And we have to hold out hope for that. And in the meantime, we cry out to God, why hasn't it happened yet? Why haven't you come yet? Surely it's bad enough. Like, right? Like this weekend, if you've been listening to some global news, surely it's gotten bad enough at this point, right? And God says, I'm still here, and I still love all of you, and I still lament and I suffer with you. I'm not here to give you the platitude that that's a satisfying answer either. That's what the long obedience in the same direction is for. One sermon is not going to answer all the questions in your life. One church that you're a part of is not going to answer all the questions in your life. One experience is not going to answer all the questions. There's a profound and sometimes intangible mystery to be had in a life lived with Jesus, in a long obedience in the same direction, and waking up every day and choosing to be a disciple and choosing to be a follower of Jesus. And the question that I have to ask myself is there any better way of living? Because it's not just bad all the time. There are times that it feels like it's just bad all the time. That's what Psalm 22 is about. There are times that it feels like the circle is getting closer and closer and closer and closer. But at the end of Psalm 22, the redemption gets wider and wider and wider and wider. At the end of the psalm, he begins to talk about all the people that he's going to tell at the great assembly, and also all the nations are going to be included in proclaiming the name of God, and also people who are dead, and also people who aren't even born yet. All of them are going to join in the second coming. All of them are going to join and sing praises to Jesus. All of them are going to join and sing praises to our God. It's a mystery. It's a profound mystery. And because of how mysterious it is, I want to end in a similar way to a month ago how we ended the Gospel of Mark. I don't have a pretty bow to put on the end of this sermon. I don't have any pretty bows to give you for whatever suffering that you're going through or that you've been through. I don't want to tell you that you can't feel like God has abandoned you, because you can. And I did. Wholeheartedly, I felt like I was left alone. You can say that to God. I encourage you to say that to God. I encourage you to be yourself in prayer, because where else can you be yourself than back at home in the arms of your Creator? When people talk about how human of an experience that prayer is, I think that's what they're after. Don't hide anything from yourself. Don't hide anything from God. He can take all the hits. He can take every single one. And I hold out hope, and I have genuine faith by looking at my life and the life of so many who've gone before me, so many in this room, and I believe, I'm wholeheartedly convinced that hearing those words, I'm still here, I still love you, we're still a part of this grand story unfolding. Over time, I'll believe that more and more. Over time, that'll set in, and over time, this psalm will flip. And I'll say, my God, thank you so much for hearing my cry. And later I can say how I'm feeling, but I think this long obedience in the same direction, this training of prayer teaches us what it really means, what it really looks like to unite with Jesus. We don't get there without lamenting, because we don't get there without being honest. Don't you crave honesty in a relationship? Haven't you been hurt before whenever it doesn't feel like everything in that relationship has been answered right away? Or like something didn't get responded in exactly the way that you wanted it to? When it felt like the other party hurt you, when it felt like the other party left you? God knows. Jesus knows. You'll find more solace with him in prayer than you will with me in this sermon. So, please, lament. Let's end our time by lamenting together. For yourself, or for somebody that you know, or for people or things that you've heard about. Let's lament together, and let's pray the words of Psalm 22. And then we'll move into a time of communion.